In July of 64 AD, Rome began to burn. Within days, the capital of the empire turned into a city of fire. The blaze would last for 9 days and nights, consuming entire districts and leaving thousands without homes. But even as the flames spread, another question began to grow just as quickly. Was this a disaster or something allowed to happen? The summer heat pressed down on the narrow alleys behind the Circus Maximus like an invisible weight, trapping the smells of sweat, oil, and dust between the wooden walls of Rome's crowded districts. Families slept restlessly in cramped insulae, windows open to catch whatever air might move through the night. It was a city used to heat, used to discomfort, used to living close to fire. But on this night, something was different. The first sign was not the flame, but the air. It thickened, turning sharp and bitter, carrying a smell that did not belong to cooking fires or evening lamps. Then came the sound, wood cracking somewhere in the dark, followed by another, closer this time. Within moments, a faint orange glow appeared between the buildings, low and unstable, pulsing as if the city itself had begun to breathe fire. Near the Circus Maximus, a small spark in a merchant's stall found everything it needed: cloth, pitch, oil. Materials meant for trade became fuel. The flame rose quickly, climbing dry timber as if guided, slipping from one structure to the next with terrifying ease. There was no wind, but none was needed. The city's design carried the fire forward, through narrow streets and overhanging balconies where buildings nearly touched. People woke in confusion that turned instantly to panic. Doors opened into heat instead of cool night air. Voices rose, shouting, calling names, giving orders no one followed. In the tight alleys, movement became difficult almost immediately. Too many bodies, too little space. Some tried to gather belongings, others ran without looking back. But all of them faced the same reality. The fire was already too close. Flames reached the upper levels of the insulae within minutes. These tall, fragile buildings, home to the majority of Rome's population, became vertical tunnels for heat and smoke. Wooden staircases collapsed, trapping those above. Some attempted to escape through windows, lowering themselves with ropes or cloth. Many fell. The streets below filled with debris, sparks, and people with nowhere to go. Attempts to fight the fire began quickly, but failed just as fast. Buckets of water passed from hand to hand, evaporated before they made a difference. Hooks meant to tear down buildings and create fire breaks were used in desperation, but every structure pulled down sent embers into the air, igniting new fires further ahead. The effort to contain the flames only spread them. The fire moved faster than the city could react. It jumped from roof to roof, crossed streets, and returned to places already thought safe. Warehouses filled with grain, oil, and straw became explosive centers of heat, feeding the blaze instead of resisting it. What sustained Rome in times of peace now accelerated its destruction. By the time the first districts were fully engulfed, the disaster had already outgrown any organized response. People began moving toward open spaces, the forum, the river, the edges of the city, anywhere the fire might slow. But even these routes became uncertain. Streets twisted unpredictably, blocked by collapsed buildings or walls of flame. Each decision, turn left, turn right, push forward, became a risk taken without time to think. As night turned toward morning, the scale of the catastrophe became visible. Smoke covered the sky, turning the rising sun into a dim, red shape behind a heavy veil. Entire neighborhoods had disappeared, replaced by burning ruins and drifting ash. Survivors gathered in whatever open ground they could find, many carrying nothing, some separated from families they would never see again. The fire did not respect status. It moved from poorer districts toward wealthier areas, threatening temples, public buildings, and homes of the elite. For a moment, the structure of Roman society collapsed under the same force. Senators and laborers, citizens and slaves, all faced the same heat, the same need to survive. As the disaster continued into the following days, control began to shift from reaction to necessity. Efforts were made to clear areas ahead of the fire, demolishing entire rows of buildings to create space. Supplies were redirected, shelters opened, and food distributed where possible. But alongside these actions, something else began to grow: uncertainty. Rumors spread through the displaced population. Some claimed to have seen individuals encouraging the flames, preventing others from extinguishing them. Others spoke of orders given in secret, of destruction allowed or even intended. Some whispered a more dangerous idea, that Emperor Nero himself had allowed the fire, that he needed space for something greater. There was no proof, but Rome needed an answer. The fire itself became unpredictable. It weakened in some areas, then surged again in others, as if resisting control. For several days, Rome existed in a state between burning and collapse, where no one could be certain what would be lost next. When the flames finally began to die, they did not end cleanly. Smoke lingered. Small fires reignited. Entire sections of the city remained unstable, their structures weakened beyond repair. The sound of destruction faded slowly, replaced by something quieter: absence. The true scale of the damage emerged piece by piece. Out of 14 districts, most had been destroyed or severely damaged. Homes, markets, storage centers, entire systems that supported daily life were gone. Thousands had died. Tens of thousands were left without shelter, without work, without any clear path forward. But the fire had done more than destroy buildings. It had exposed the vulnerability of the city itself. Rome had grown dense, efficient, and powerful, but also fragile, dependent on systems that worked only as long as nothing disrupted them. Rebuilding began almost immediately, not as a return to what was lost, but as a response to what had been learned. Streets were widened, building heights were reduced, stone and brick replaced wood where possible. Open spaces were introduced to slow future fires. Regulations were enforced more strictly, reshaping the city into something more controlled, more resistant. At the same time, the search for responsibility intensified. Accusations focused on a small and unfamiliar group within Rome: Christians, who refused to worship the Roman gods and were already viewed with suspicion. In the aftermath of disaster, difference became guilt. Punishments followed, not only as justice, but as a way to restore a sense of order. Years later, new structures would rise over the scars left by the fire. Among them, an immense amphitheater built where destruction had once been absolute, the Colosseum, a symbol not only of power, but of transformation. The fire ended, but its effects did not. It changed how Rome was built, how it was governed, and how its people understood the stability of their world. What had seemed permanent proved fragile. What had been destroyed forced something new to take its place. And in that transformation lies the true legacy of the fire, not the flames themselves, but what they revealed about a city that ruled the world, yet could not protect itself from burning.